Hello and welcome to Zelda Speedruns 3, bringing you a match of the Link's Awakening Switch any percent tournament. It is lowest bracket round 4, EDL666 versus Meeks, and on commentary for you today is Glan, the person who already made it to win his finals and knocked both of these into lowest brackets, so way more qualified to talk about these runners than I am, so I'll leave it to you, Glan.
Hello, hi everyone. So as was mentioned, this is the any percent glitchless tournament. We're getting pretty deep into it, and today here we have a race between two very good runners of the game. We have EDL666, who's a very good runner of this game, been running it for a very long time. She has a top spot in like every category, so expecting to see some good things, hopefully. And we also have Sorty Meeks, who is okay, so I was saying ADL has currently has a PB in Glitchless of 139.34, and Meeks is currently at 142.18. But she's been improving a lot over the last couple months and has like a lot of potential to just smash that PB. So even with that almost 3-minute gap, this is still anybody's race. So it should be pretty exciting one here. Looks like they're set to get started soon. So just kind of a little overview of the any percent glitchless run. Since it is glitchless, it's obviously very light on tricks. There's only a handful of tricks and skips over the run, and the vast majority of it is all about optimizing movement and combat, and like every little thing matters. And to the point where like any sort of variance just from like basic enemy RNG or maybe more major boss RNG can play a really big factor. So, one other thing worth mentioning about this category, kind of right from the start, something that's going to be taking place for both of these runners through the first like 60% of the run is keeping track of their kill count in order to manipulate 4 piece of power drops. So the piece of power is a power-up that drops from enemies, but not randomly. It drops after a certain number of kills, which is after 32 plus your maximum heart containers kills since the last time it dropped. So right now at the start, since they have 3, it would be 35 kills, but that'll increase as they get more hearts. And we need 2 of these in specific spots to speed up certain sections, which will be in Candlelit Castle, which is right after Dungeon 2, and for the boss of Dungeon 5. And we'll talk more about that when they get there. So at the start here, they're both pretty much neck and neck, of course. There's not much going on up to this point. Heading down to the beach to get the sword, and then they'll be heading up into the mysterious forest, where they'll get magic powder and the tail key to then enter the first dungeon. Something we did see on Meeks' side already, I think it was Meeks. One of them kind of got a little bullied by this Octorok on the way down, and that's kind of a prime example of what I meant by saying like any sort of little enemy variance can affect the time. Sometimes you just get a situation like that that slows you down no matter what, and it's completely out of your control. So really optimizing this run at a really high level can get a bit frustrating, but it also serves as a good equalizer in a race setting. Here, heading through the forest, I'm going to take very specific movement to kind of get around these moblins as best they can. And I've had to do this cave to get to the mushroom. This particular cave can be a little bit annoying because Keese are very erratic in their movements, but at the same time also have kind of a limited number of patterns. So if you are familiar with it enough, you can know kind of how to handle every pattern you could get there. But something that might look a bit strange is they're both going to avoid killing as many of these keys as they can, even though they are like erratic and annoying, which is in order to keep that kill count in check, as I mentioned before. You kind of have to be, in order to get the piece of power and candle it, you kind of have to be a little conservative with your kills at the start of the game. Like we see EDL there, took the hit from the Zal, or maybe meant to block it. But you don't want to kill that because it actually splits into 2 gels, which would then count as 2 kills, and like you can't really afford to kill too many things at this stage. So you're kind of hoping that it won't get in your way. So they're both picking up the magic powder here. Unlike in LADX, the magic powder is actually used quite a bit more in this version, partly due to the liberty of having more items equipable at once, but it can also serve as a quick way to kill a lot of enemies, since to a lot of enemies, powder will do 2 damage and kill them in less time than it takes to do 2 sword slashes, and also without the knockback of doing sword slashes. Not to mention that the powder has a very large hitbox that also lasts for a long time. So, in kind of the very early stages of the game, it can be a useful weapon. Both of them picking up the tail key here, so they will be heading to Dungeon 1, but first, since this is glitchless, and we will have to go to Candlelit Castle in order to get to Dungeon 3, they're going to have to do a little bit of the trading quest first, because you can only get into Candlelit by completing the trading sequence up to trading to Kiki the monkey. So we're going to have to do basically the first 3 stages here, or maybe, I guess, 4 if you count the Yoshi doll as one. Which, all of these first ones are in the town here, except for trading for the bananas, which will be after Dungeon 1. But they're going to try to pick up the Yoshi from the trendy game here, and this has been kind of a recurring villain of this tournament. The trendy game is very bizarre, and as we can see there, sometimes you just have the prize slip out of the crane, and the physics don't really make the most sense. You're kind of just hoping that you don't get bullied here. That should hopefully be fine for EDL. Yeah, okay. So EDL gets second try. Second try loses about 20 seconds. Yeah, Meeks practiced this just before. She knew it was the run killer, the recurring run killer. Like, no matter how good you are at this game, like you're getting resets to the Yoshi doll when you grind this run out. It's inevitable. And they're gonna do the next couple of little steps of the trading sequence to get the ribbon and then to get the dog food, and then they'll finally be able to head to Dungeon 1. So they are doing this trading sequence up to, as I said, Kiki the monkey to get into Candlelit, but after that, we won't need to do any more of the trading sequence, since we run this game with an RNG manipulation. So there are 2 things that get randomly rolled when you create a new file, which are the solution to the tile puzzle in Dungeon 4, and the path that you take through the Windfish's egg at the end of the game. And So like what happens is you make a new file and it randomly determines these and bakes it into your save file. Even if it's like a fresh new save file, it still has that saved. And anytime you start up that file, it'll always have that RNG baked into it. And so because of this, we're actually able to manipulate the RNG in a way to create a file where we know the path and also have it be the fastest path possible. So we won't need to do any more of the trading sequence, which casually you'd have to do the entire thing to get the magnifying lens in order to read the book that tells you the path, but we already know it. So we don't have to do all that boring stuff. Which is really great because it makes the run flow a lot more nicely than it would if we had to actually do the full sequence. I'm kind of glossing a bit over D1 here. Meeks unfortunately missed a strat in this turtle room. Let's see if EDL gets it. If she does, you want to knock that upper turtle into the pit, which is not only faster, but also doesn't count as a kill in terms of piece of power drops, which is really advantageous, because I said we need to try to get a low number of kills in the early game. So being able to spare that one helps a lot. And they pick up the Rock's Feather here, which is kind of like, it's one of the main movement items of the game, which it allows you to jump. And it's incredibly core to the gameplay of Link's Awakening. Hence you getting in the first dungeon. So I guess kind of an interesting tidbit, we see them picking up this key here after getting the feather. In terms of raw movement, it wouldn't be any slower to get it at the start of the dungeon, but the very, very first time you pick up a key, it displays a text box explaining what it is, even if it's one on the ground like that. But if you get a key from a chest, it always shows that text box anyway. So it's faster to get the one from the chest first. Yeah, so overall, they're still really close here. Meek's getting a little bullied by these enemies. Sometimes they really, really just want to be in your way. Let's see if EDL gets better luck here. Looking... unfortunately still bullied by a keys. Meeks is fighting Rolling Bones, which is the mini-boss here. Ideally, you want to trap him in a corner. We'll see EDL get this. Unfortunately, also gets loose on her end. This boss, he's tricky because he has kind of long invincibility frames, and so if you slash too early, you don't hit him, and then he usually takes that opportunity to just jump into you, and you're kind of screwed. It's the Moldorm fight. Moldorm will die to 2 spin slashes, and in between you have to wait for him to kind of rampage around the room for a bit. Usually he's not too much trouble, but sometimes you can get a really bad pattern and waste a lot of your time. Or if you're, only at 1 heart or something, he could just run into you and kill you. But usually he's not too much trouble. And yep, both an instrument cutscene at the same time, so still very neck and neck. Still a lot of room for either to overtake the other. Right, the hard container. So optimally, the optimal number of hard containers is generally to have 5 in total, so you'll grab 2. I'm not sure if these runners will do 5 or 6. It doesn't matter too much. They're about 5 seconds to pick up, maybe a little bit longer if you have to walk out of your way. But generally you want to have 5 at least, because there are parts of the game where you have to take intentional damage. And if you have like too few hearts, then you'll have to rely on healing too much, which will just waste time. So, kind of, I guess like what you would generally see as the optimal route is getting the heart containers from dungeon 1 and 3. I think EDL grabs 1 and 2, and then sometimes 3. Should probably correct me if I'm wrong on that, but... And I don't remember what Meeks usually does with heart containers. I think she goes for 5. She might do 6 in a race setting. And you generally don't need a lot more than that, unless you're like pretty new to the game, because this game actually has like a built-in mechanic to keep you from dying. The game really doesn't want you to die, because when you get to low health, like beeping health, a lot of prize packs get replaced with a prize pack that has a 75% drop rate of hearts. And so if you're ever in low health, like, you're almost guaranteed to find another one really quickly. Anyway, so Meeks is entering the Moblin Cave here. Unfortunately, it's a really bad pattern in this room. Some patterns are really, really hard to deal with there. But she's going off against the Moblin King. Gets a nice one cycle. One cycle is pretty hard there. It abuses a mechanic where if you release a spin attack when an enemy is like near Link's left hand, which is the hand he's holding the sword in, it can actually hit twice. So you have to do that and then time 4 well-timed slashes after that to finish him off. But they have to be pretty well-timed and rhythmic, because again, the thing with like invincibility frames, if you slash too soon you won't hit him. So like you can't get it by just mashing. Like if you just mash, you're basically guaranteed to not get a one cycle. Oh, Meeks gets the hard piece of shame. Very unfortunate. EDL successfully dodging the heart piece. So now that they've both rescued Bow Wow, we get to see whether Bow Wow will be a good boy or a bad boy. Because he has to eat these flowers in the swamp in order to get into Dungeon 2. Seems like he was a relatively decent boy for Meeks. You also see him kind of jumping through the swamp. The water slows you down a lot, so it's faster to just jump around. It looks like they both had relatively decent Bow Wows, which is good. Heading to Dungeon 2. Dungeon 2, I would say, is one of the more variance-heavy dungeons. Especially with that Stealth Host key room. They can give you really, really bad RNG. You can get like 5 seconds of variance in that room or something, between best and worst, at least. If you're really unlucky. This side scroller here, there's no way at all to make the cycle of this platform. So you kind of just get to screw around for a little bit while you wait. Always interesting to see what people spend their time doing in this room. We've got a Henox Fight here. This fight's pretty tricky. Luckily Meeks just barely grabbed getting dodged there. So you have to get 8 slashes in on him before he manages to grab you, ideally. And this can be a bit tricky. By jumping, you can get 3 slashes in a jump. But it can be kind of hard to time that. Sometimes you only get 2. We saw a good fight from EDL though. You can abuse a bit of his behavior where if you're close to him, he'll throw a bomb instead of trying to grab you. And she's able to make use of that to have him not try to grab her. Alright, we get the power bracelet here. Both unfortunately getting caught by the gel there. Alright, so this room here might look a little bit weird. There's kind of a hidden puzzle here where you have to kill the enemies in a specific order. Which is first the Pulse Voice, then the Keys, and then the Stalfos. This is another room that can be highly affected by variance, especially... I mean, where any of the enemies go, really. Like, the Pulse Voice can just, like, stay in its little corner down there. The Keys can go way the hell off to nowhere. The Stalfos can go way the hell off to nowhere. Looks like they're both on decent pace here, which is good. And after this, another slow, boring side-scrolling section. We have to fight Genie, which is an incredibly boring boss fight. Just awful. You get auto-scrolling, you get dialogue, you get RNG. It's got the whole package of garbage. So the first 3 cycles, you will throw fireballs, and then you get to throw the pot at the wall. There's not a whole lot you can do to speed up this section besides forcing up to the top of the room. So the pot is already beside the wall. Then after we do this 3 times, we'll go into phase 2, where you will spin around the room and stop after a random amount of time, and then give you an opportunity to hit him. Ideally, we want to get that phase in 2 cycles. There's several strats to do that, so we might see different strats for both of them here. They can tell which one is the real Genie by the one that is closer to the outer walls of the room. That will be the one that turns into a real Genie when they stop spinning. And we got a good 2 cycle from Meeks. EDL also looks set up to get a 2 cycle, which is good. But yeah, the second phase is RNG. It takes a random amount of time to stop. So just because this dungeon needed even more variance, we added RNG to Genie. Okay, so they both get the heart container. Alright, and now that they have the conch horn, We're off to the next dungeon. So this is a pretty long section between two dungeons. We're gonna have to go to Candlelit Castle. But first we're gonna go back to Mabe Village and return Bow Wow and pick up some things from the shop, which we couldn't really do before because something new in this version of Link's Awakening is that the bombs in the shop are gated behind having the conch horn. For some reason, something about the fact that they can break pots in this version and it would let you sequence break slightly in Dungeon 2 or something, I don't know. It's a very questionable design choice, but regardless, we couldn't get bombs until now, so this will be the time we go to the shop and get what we need. And we're not really going to actually give him all that much business, so we're going to go into the shop and we're going to buy 30 bombs. And then we're going to pick up the shovel and walk out the door. Oh. Can't let him see you though. Okay. So now we got the shovel. And the shopkeeper is not very happy about that, so he's gonna kill you. Death penalty is still a thing in Covalent, apparently. But yeah, we're gonna also steal the bow. Now we're done with the shop. Stealing those two items saves a total of 1,180 rupees, which is way more than we could reasonably get. So stealing is by far our fastest option for these items. And now that we're equipped with our bow and our bombs and our shovel, I head over to Cuckoo Prairie and into Candlelit Castle. We've seen both of them make use of a cool feature of this game, which is bomb arrows. So if you have bombs and arrows equipped at the same time, and you use both within a few frames of each other, then you will shoot a bomb arrow which explodes on impact. And this is going to be used in a lot of places throughout the run, to either kind of deal more damage or to just blow things up faster, because a bomb normally takes 3 seconds to blow up, whereas a bomb arrow explodes on impact. So as kind of a rule of thumb, anywhere we can use a bomb arrow, we're going to save 3 seconds. So heading into Candlelit now. This little quest here, basically we have to come in here and get 5 golden leaves for Richard, who was forcibly ejected from Candlelit Castle, but wasn't able to bring his leaves with him. So we have to go in here and get them back because he wants them. And these Dark Nuts won't let him come back for them. They don't like him. I mean, they don't like us either, but we have bomb arrows and Richard doesn't have bomb arrows, so can't really blame him. Okay, so we see the piece of power on EDL's side. I think Meeks is going to get it in the next room, because I didn't see her get it already. She seems to be doing some strats here to save arrows. I'm not too familiar with the routing that she takes, but It's a good opportunity to talk about how important of a commodity arrows are in this game. So when we steal the bow, we get 20 arrows alongside that, and we do not get any sort of arrow refill until Dungeon 6. So we have to be very, very careful with our arrows. Overall, the arrow route is very, very, very tight. You have a little bit of room for leeway in that kind of the end goal is that you want to have a certain number available for the eagle fight, which doesn't require a strict number, but the more you have, the faster you can do it. So for any sort of like high level or optimized run in this game, you want to have a lot of arrows at that point in time. Both of them having a little bit of trouble with these dark nuts. Taking care of the mad bomber here. Meeks, I think, shot 3 arrows at him. EDL used 1 slash to make up for the arrow that she accidentally wasted in the room with the bomb wall dark nut. It's like the arrow route is that tight that even though normally you'd use 3 arrows in that fight, she like had to use a different strat there to make up for 1 arrow because it's that important. Or, I don't know, maybe she always does that, I'm not sure. So we give Richard back his leaves and enjoy watching the 4 frogs during that cutscene. I always do. And he gives us access to his overgrown field for some reason. I don't know why he thought that was a good reward, but there's a key buried here, so turned out to be pretty good. Now we can get into Dungeon 3. Dungeon 3 is another dungeon with a lot of variance. There's a lot of enemy RNG to worry about. And it takes a lot of reacting and adapting to what you're given. Especially in the second room of the dungeon, which we should see shortly. So yeah, in this room, EDL's in it now. Got kind of robbed there. Not sure exactly what happened. But you want to have the bombs hit the other enemies. And she did hit that bomb into the Stalfos, and he just blocked it like it was nothing, so that's really great. You really don't want to have to manually kill that Stalfos, it's super slow. Alright, jumping along this conveyor, since it's the fastest way to get around it. So we saw both of them take damage, which is good because you could get a Guardian Acorn drop here, which is the other power-up in the game, which drops after you kill 14 enemies without taking damage. And this dungeon has enough enemies that it kind of lines up to get an Acorn drop in that group of red Zulls. Unless you take damage somewhere, and You generally don't want to do that because it costs like 2 seconds to pick it up and serves no practical purpose whatsoever. And it's very easy to accidentally pick up there. Both of them had fairly decent Dongle fights. Kind of glossed over that, but I can talk about it more in Dungeon 6. Since there's another one there. We got the boots. The boots are another very important core movement item, letting us dash, and the boots are very nuanced, I guess. There's a lot you can do with them to optimize them. See, you first like have a little bit of charge up, and you can move really during that charge up. Well, it's slower than normal walking speed, but you can kind of use it to like walk around a corner while you're charging up. But it can be very difficult to do that and still ensure that you're facing the right direction to actually start the dash. And on top of that, you can strafe during your dash, like left or right. So, like, very optimal boots usage is very hard. So, we see them going up around here to get this 300 rupees chest, which, first of all, is necessary to buy the Frog Song of Soul after Dungeon 6. And this is the fastest way to get 300. And also, secondly, we couldn't get it on our first pass through of that room because you need to kill the little gel that's on the left side that can only be reached after you get the boots. So unfortunately we have to backtrack to get it after boots, but it still is the fastest way to get 300 rupees in the game. Now, if you haven't noticed, this dungeon key cavern has a lot of keys in it. Kind of the main gimmick is to find a bunch of keys to get through this section with 4 key blocks. And after doing so, we can get to the boss. EDL getting the kind of cursed acorn drop, which happens pretty frequently, actually. It's pretty common that you get an acorn drop there right beside the door. You want to avoid it. Alright, so Slime Eye, this boss, or Gigazol, which is arguably a better name. Pretty simple boss. First you have to break apart with the boots, and then hit each eye for 4 damage, which you can do with 4 slashes. Or dashing into it does 2 damage. So you can just do like a double dash like Meeks did there if you kill them. There's a little bit of RNG to the fight in terms of when they choose to jump up in the air. If you hit them fast enough, they don't get a chance to do that, so you're ideally aiming to do that on the first one you go after and prevent it from jumping up, even if its RNG says it should. And yeah, so they both skipped this art container. They're both going to be going with 5 hearts for this race. Which is pretty standard. Ooh, nice EDL dashing through that bush there. That's actually harder than it looks. There's some weird jankiness that could make you bonk on it. Like, yeah, Meeks bonked on it. This is another super long overworld segment between two dungeons. This one has a lot of cutscenes in it. We have to first get the walrus to tell us that he's looking for Marin, and then we're going to be able to go have a date with Marin on the beach, and then bring her to the walrus to have her sing, and then also listen to her sing again. So there's a lot of cutscenes here. But I hope you like Marin singing, because you're going to hear it a lot. EDL's going into the Dream Shrine to get the Ocarina. There's a lot of enemies here. Just dash through them all. It's pretty hard to make a mistake here, but you want to be careful because these mimics do 3 hearts of damage if you touch them. And it can completely screw you up on this split, especially since you need a lot of health going into the next dungeon after this. But it's not something that generally happens. Yeah, both of them are through no problem. I think they're actually the single thing in the game that does the most damage. Some of the bosses and stuff were actually nerfed from the original version. Like Hothead did 3 hearts of damage in the original, but he only does like half a heart now, or 1 heart, something like that. We had a little cute beach date with Marin. She tells us all about how she wishes she was a seagull. And we have to reassure her that we are actually listening to her talk about seagulls. Link's pretty proud of his date. He thinks it went really well. Get some cute overworld music for a little bit. And we take her to the walrus, and she sings to wake him up, and then bails on the date. Just leaves Link for a rabbit. Pretty bad feel. But I mean, the rabbit's pretty cute, so I don't know, I can't really compete with that. But yeah, now we get to fight Lanmola. So Lanmola has some RNG to him. Unfortunately, EDL missed an arrow shot, threw the whole thing off. Yeah, ideally you want to get this fight in 1 cycle, or 2, depending on if you get bad RNG. So we'll see what Meeks gets here. Oh, that's really bad. I almost feel like it might be better to auto-load there. think there's an autosave after the walrus. Yeah, so now she's used so many arrows already that she can't afford to use more. So she's gonna just fight Lanmola with the sword. This is really unfortunate. But it goes to show how awful this fight can be sometimes. Meeks gets the angler key. Is going to head back to Animal Village to listen to Marin sing like EDL is doing right now. To learn the Ballad of the Windfish. Which is the song that we need to beat the game, and not much else. Marin says she's gonna stay here and we should never forget her. Never forget Marin, she's too cute. No, bomb arrows are not a glitch, they are a completely intended mechanic. Alright, so EDL is going for a fairly recently discovered trick here, where you can actually just barely dash jump and grab this ladder. Which saves about 2 seconds if done quickly over the old route of warping up to Dampe's house and running around. But it's kind of tricky, you have to be like right at the edge of the stairs. Like hanging over the water when you start your dash. Meeks is also going to go for this. I'll see if she gets it faster. Yep, first try, nice. Not bullied by that moblin either. Now we take a little excursion through the mountains in order to get to the Dungeon 4 entrance. Now, Dungeon 4, Angler's Tunnel, is arguably the most broken dungeon in the game, and even in Glitchless, it's not an exception. This is going to be where our biggest trick of the run is, and it's going to be coming up fairly shortly. If you see this plus-shaped pit, we're going to use Bomb Knockback in order to jump from the left side to the bottom, which skips collecting and using 2 keys, saving over a minute. And it's not a glitch because you just take damage while you're in the air. It's just a physics exploit. But it might look a little bit weird because we're going to also make use of a another non-glitch mechanic called skewing, where we can use one of several techniques to get Link off of one of the normal 8 walking directions, and that's required to throw the bomb in the right spot. Alright, so EDL gets its second try. It's still pretty fast. There's a few setups for this, so we might see Meeks do something a little bit different. Nice cue ball kill from EDL. This fight's actually really tricky. It can go very, very wrong if you mess up, so. Yeah, Meeks doesn't G-ball. Alright, now that we have the flippers, we actually just leave Dungeon 4 entirely instead of finishing it, and we're going to finish it right at the end of the game. And the reason for this is to skip the ghost quest. So after you pick up the instrument from Dungeon 4, and you go further south than a certain point on the map, you will begin to be followed by a ghost. And before you can enter any other dungeon or do anything really significant, you must take the ghost to its house and watch a very long cutscene, and then take the ghost to its grave and watch a very long cutscene. And overall, it takes a very long time, as you can imagine. So we can skip that entirely by just not finishing the dungeon until the very end of the game and going directly to the egg afterwards. Since luckily Dungeon 4 is not south enough to make the ghost spawn immediately, and neither is the egg. The Dungeon 4 is one of 2 dungeons that will be done in 2 parts. We've seen them both pick up Mambo's Mambo, which is a song that lets us fast travel, and was made a lot more useful in this version of Link's Awakening. So not only were there a lot more warp points added to the map, but now Mambo's Mambo allows us to warp to any of the warp points that we've opened up. And this makes it actually incredibly useful for getting around quickly. Even though it takes a very long time to actually get, and even to use it, playing it takes like 12 seconds or something. It still saves a lot of time. So EDL is doing the Armos Knight fight here to get the face key. Another kind of tricky fight. See how this goes. Alright, pretty clean. 2 spins, 2 arrows. That's what you want to see. That fight is kind of wonky. It's very not intuitive when he's actually vulnerable to be hit. Which makes it kind of hard to figure it out, and even as like a top runner or something, you'll still get bullied by him a lot because he just makes no sense. Alright, now we're entering Dungeon 5. So we did kill Armos Knight to get the face key, which is the key to enter Dungeon 6, even though we're just going to Dungeon 5 now. And overall, there's not really any time difference between doing it here or after Dungeon 5. The main difference is in the kill route for the piece of power drop. You kill a lot of enemies on the way to the face key, and so it generally works out more nicely to get those kills before Dungeon 5. So, Catfish's Maw Dungeon 5, another somewhat high variance dungeon, especially in that room that EDL just got through, with the Helmosaur and the 4 keys. So you're expected to kill all those enemies, but you can't hit the front of Helmosaur with its mask on. So depending on the RNG you get, you can just be completely screwed over for like 15 seconds or something, in a really bad case. Or other times you can get like what Meeks has and just be able to dash through it immediately and it's dead. EDL got the unfortunate bad RNG where the Helmosaur goes right at the start, which makes it very difficult to hit it. So here we're seeing Master Stalfos, who's kind of the main gimmick of this dungeon overall. So Master Stalfos has stolen the hookshot out of the chest in the room right after where EDL is. And in order to get the hookshot, you have to track him down and beat him 4 times. And that's basically the majority of this dungeon. We have this annoying block room, which was, you know, everyone loved that so much in Link to the Past that they had to bring it back for this game. It's just, it's a mainstay of quality Zelda dungeon design. There's not really a ton to talk about here. So I guess I can kind of mention something that I haven't really talked about yet, which is something they've been doing a lot in dungeons is what we call auto-loading. So after significant events in the game, it auto-saves. This is like a lot of things, like opening any chest or like picking up any item or killing any boss or anything like that. It auto-saves, and the saves happen pretty much immediately. Like they're pretty much instant saves. And so we can very quickly load that autosave to get back to the start of the dungeon. As we just saw EDL do. In terms of like kind of intended design, Menbo's Mambo also brings you back to the entrance of a dungeon, but does so about 7 seconds slower than auto-loading does, so even then it's not worth it. And that's like not even factoring in the time it would take to menu to it. So EDL getting to the last Master Stalfos fight. They do have to be fought specifically in order in the 4 rooms. You can't like jump ahead. Picking up the hookshot. Hopefully both of them are on track to get their piece of power drops. Everyone kind of routes it and handles it a little differently, so it's not really possible to tell if they're on track or not. Oh yeah, were they synced on the Stalfos fights? It's a pretty good chance of that, considering how many of them there are. Okay, EDL skips killing those bloopers, which must mean she's like pretty much right on the money for getting the drop. We'll Excursion Day at the Nightmare Key. Unfortunately, in this version, we do actually need the hookshot to get this. If anybody has like seen LADX speedruns, you can just do a dash jump across that pit, but it's not possible in this version. Oh, cut it very close on the Cheep Cheep. Those Cheep Cheep are bullies. Yeah, here, yeah, you want to get the piece of power in this room. And now we're going to, again, make use of skewing. So we're going to see EDL kind of jump in place, but turn slightly to the right to get very slightly off that 45-degree angle, which allows shooting the hook shot in a way that'll reach that top block past the lower one, which is actually added specifically to block shooting the hook shot at 45 degrees. We can get past it by shooting it not 45 degrees though. So yeah, Speedrunners 1, Grezzo 0. Alright, and it's EDL showcasing why we want the piece of power here. So Slimeo is a very RNG heavy boss. He has 4 possible spawns, and it takes 16 hits to kill him normally, but with a piece of power it only takes 8, which allows us to do it in 1 cycle, which means we only need to get good RNG on the first cycle in order to successfully win the fight. So there's 4 possible spawns, as I said, and the top right spawn is not possible to grab on the first cycle. Or, well, at least with the strat that most people use. But there's no strat that allows you to grab all 4 RNGs on the first cycle. I'm hoping that Meeks has enough piece of power left, because she took a long time to get the skew. Oh, she just missed the last hit. That's really not good. Oh no, don't die. Yeah, and then also if you damage him enough, he'll start doing fakes, like you see here. The ones with the black eyes and white pupils are fakes. If you pull those out, it won't be the boss that's vulnerable, it'll just be some like giant moldworm type thing that runs around and explodes. Oh no. See, this is exactly why we want the piece of power, because you can just be sent running in circles for minutes. Until you get the right RNG. At least you didn't die. That's the important thing. So we see EDL is now beginning Dungeon 6, which is arguably the hardest dungeon overall. Arguably, not definitively, but this dungeon has a lot of difficult parts, a lot of things that can go wrong and just cost you multiple seconds of time loss. Even this room, that moldworm can cause you like a ton of time loss if he gives you really bad RNG. But it also has arguably the best music in the game, so hopefully you can jam out to that at least. This room with the wizrobes, there's a fast strat to shoot a bomb arrow at the anti-fairy, but it is dependent on its RNG. So EDL opts to just use a bomb there, which is a bit slower, but has the silver lining of saving an arrow back, which can save time later. That's only the first of difficult sections in this dungeon. Now we have the Smasher Fight. Smasher Fight, it's possible to grab the ball before he gets to it. It's very tight. Unfortunately, EDL didn't get it. Oh, unfortunately, got just right at the end there. Grabbing the ball first saves like a few seconds, like 3 seconds or something like that. It's a little less than you would think because If you don't get the ball first, you can end the fight right beside the door out. So you save a little time back that way. In that case. Wait, did Meeks die somewhere? I missed something. EDL is done with tile room number 2. Tile rooms are pretty uninteresting, but EDL is playing with the horse heads. Which are not random in this version like they are in the Game Boy versions. But instead, mimic the movement of a knight in chess after you throw them. However, they are very janky and we can do weird stuff with them by throwing them diagonally. Which gets abused in that room to do it fast. So we have the Dongle Fight here, which I glossed over from Dungeon 3. So how these work is they will only eat a bomb if they are opening their mouths as they move, and after they eat a bomb, they will move 4 times before they start opening their mouth again. Which means you have to wait and count movements. And in some cases kind of abuse their AI a little bit. In some cases you get abused by their AI because it doesn't make any sense. Now, finally EDL gets to go to Facade, the boss of Dungeon 6. So Facade dies in 6 bomb hits, and will have a movement pattern depending on how many hits he's taken. The first 3 will all be in the center of the room. The next one is, like the 4th one is kind of random, but like not under you. And then the next 2 are generally like aimed underneath you. Unfortunately shot that too early. So the way that we generally handle this fight is to shoot bomb arrows at the tiles as they fly over top of him, and then they explode and hit him. For the 4th through 6th hits. The first 3, since he spawns in the middle of the room, you can just place a bomb. Because he will always spawn there and he won't run away from there being a bomb nearby, like he will later in the fight. So overall, had a decent fight, had a bit of Bit of a janky spawn to deal with, but pretty solid overall. Meeks cleaning up her Dongle Fight. Looking like she got a pretty decent fight there. That Dongle Fight is a lot of RNG variants. Like, the really bad RNGs are very, very time wasting compared to the best RNGs. Now EDL is going through a sign maze. Sign maze is one of the most difficult sections to get through cleanly in the entire game. There's just a lot of enemies, and you have to be very precise with your movement. But it looks like she's getting through it pretty quickly. The kind of puzzle here is that the signs tell you the direction of the next sign you have to read, and you have to do them in that order. And then eventually you get into here, and you get to listen to a frog with teeth sing to you for like 30 seconds. Which is pretty fantastic. As long as we ignore how bizarre it is for a frog to have teeth. Oh, Meeks is having a bit of trouble on Facade here. She has to be really careful because bombs do 2 hearts of damage to you, so she can't hit herself with a bomb or she'll die. But she got through it fine. So, after getting Frog Song of Soul from Mamu the Frog, also known as Wart. The song can be used to bring things to life. We can perform necromancy on the rooster. The legendary flying rooster will be used for exactly one thing in this run. And not living up to his full glitched potential, which you could see in any of the glitched speedruns of this game. Meeks making her way through the sign maze. So ultimately EDL here is heading up to Dungeon 7 in the far east of the mountains. So we'll be going through more of the mountains than we did last time. first we have to get the bird key in order to get into the dungeon. We're going to use the rooster to fly all the way through this cave here. Meeks getting her frog song. And she's going to mambo out of this cave. Unlike EDL, who had the feather and ran out of this cave. So these two routes are kind of a matter of preference. Technically, the running out of the cave is slightly faster, less than a second, but has some variance to it. So it's mostly up to preference, even if one is technically slightly faster. EDL now using the shovel to open that warp point. That warp point is important because Dungeon 7 is the other dungeon that we are going to do in two parts here. The purpose of splitting this dungeon up will be to skip a cutscene on the way to Dungeon 8. So if you get the Organ of Evening Calm, the instrument from D7, then when you go towards D8, Marin will be stranded on the bridge and you rescue her, and you have a long cutscene of her almost confessing her love for you or something, and then Aaron stops her, and then you have to listen to the owl on top of all that. It's really slow, so it's faster to just split the dungeon up. Because unlike the Game Boy versions of the game, you cannot actually get past Marin if she's there at all. In the Game Boy versions, you can just jump over the bridge and completely ignore her, which is really cruel but also funny. But anyway, Dungeon 7, casually the most frustrating dungeon generally. It's extremely confusing, has a lot of like red herring rooms that don't serve any purpose. But in the speedrun, it's one of the more straightforward dungeons. There's not a ton of enemies to deal with, not a ton of variance. It's generally pretty straightforward and consistent. Right now, EDL is ahead by a few minutes. She's in Dungeon 7, and Meeks is on the way into Dungeon 7 still. So we're going to see EDL go for a strat here, where she's going to use a bomb and throw it over to this specific tile on the left. Because for some reason, this tile room specifically has kind of a mechanic where as soon as that tile that she threw the bomb near, that's the last one that rises up in sequence. As soon as that tile is destroyed, the door opens, even if there's still other tiles on screen. And it's only this tile room that works that way. Other tile rooms require every tile to be destroyed first. Overall, the gimmick here in this dungeon is that we have to carry this ball around and use it to destroy the 4 pillars. be heading to the final one after getting the Nightmare Key here. This is a really, really hard mini plus. Oh, she barely made it. No, that is incredibly easy. It's as easy as looks. You literally just mash B and you win the fight. Meeks is now starting into Dungeon 7. This room with the key is actually one of the most, like, has some of the most variants in the entire dungeon. The other is the one EDL is doing right now, this 3 of a kind. She had a very interesting pattern there. I've never seen anything like that one before. They just kind of stick in the bottom wall there. You have to hit them all on the same suit in order to beat them. So ideally you want them to group close together so you can hit the same ones with one slash instead of having to wait multiple cycles. And killing those is necessary to spawn the chest that she just hookshotted to. In order to get the last pillar broken. So after breaking all the pillars, the top floor of the dungeon is now accessible. But instead of going there, we're going to just leave and come back later to finish it. Because of what I explained before. Doing so, we'll skip the cutscene on the bridge with Marin. Oh, Meeks lost the ball by accident. That's really unfortunate. Losing the ball is a really frustrating mistake to make. EDL's going through boulder hell. Only gets hit twice. Pretty reasonable, honestly. This is a little sketchy. Yeah, so you can do a shield dash there. To get through the flame very quickly, which is pretty much the only thing the mirror shield is required for in the whole game. Yeah, the 3 of a kind is weird. EDL's on the Turtle Rock fight here. This fight can be a little dangerous, but usually it's fine. We get to see the rooster riding on his nose, always a treat. Rooster just likes to hang out up there. Can't bully him. This dungeon 8's another fairly difficult dungeon. There's a lot of sections that are kind of like fairly straightforward movement, but then there's some combat sections in particular that are very tricky and can go very wrong. And then on top of all of that, the boss has a pretty decent amount of RNG to deal with. You're using the hook shot for a little bit of movement speed here. And so we use bomb arrows here to kind of go through this room. Kind of a secret passage there. There's no visible indication that that wall is bombable from that side. And you can't even get close to it to hear like the audible clink of it being bombable. So it's kind of just like a if you know thing that speeds up the dungeon massively. It's not the only way to get there, but it's definitely the fastest way to get in there. But after we get a couple keys and some arrow refills, the arrow refills are very important, since we need to use a lot of arrows both for the Eagle fight after this and the and Death Eye at the very end of the game. But yeah, we're heading into the Blano fight now. Blano is tricky. He's definitely a tricky one. Ooh, that was really nice. Generally you want to stun lock him against the wall, but he definitely is prone to escape. She recovered that really well. We need to take a little sidetrack to get a small key. This is the fastest one we can get, somehow. Another super difficult boss fight there. Just really hard. Meeks just barely had the rooster not in the way. Her bomb arrows there. Like she had a decent, good cleanup on Turtle Rock there. Now she will also be starting Dungeon 8 while EDL is heading towards the cue ball fight to get the Nightmare Key. This cue ball fight is easier than the one in D4, but should also not be underestimated. Oh, that's unfortunate. She's probably just gonna wait for him to go around again. Yeah, you want to just shoot him 5 times from across the room like this. But his eyes are like encased in metal or something, and they don't, like, they aren't a vulnerable part of his body. So, you have to be a little careful when you shoot, because you can get kind of fucked over like that. Dungeon 8 has a lot of auto-loading. We played those, like, couple entrance rooms over and over again. And then EDL is going to head to the hothead after going through these ice block rooms, which are actually kind of tricky to do quickly. Unlike the first set of ice block rooms, those ones are much trickier. It's copped. So hothead has two phases. First phase, you have to get him out of the fire state and then hit him 5 times. Ideally before he goes back under the lava. Second phase, you have to hit him 3 times as he jumps out. It looked like a 2-cycle on phase 2. 1 cycle into a 2 cycle, which is a pretty good fight. Like, that's as good as you can ask for. So Meeks gets a really good Blano fight. That's really nice to see. Now that EDL has beaten Dungeon 8, the only thing left is to revisit the 2 dungeons that have been split up into 2 parts. So first we'll go back to Dungeon 7 and finish that. And then we're going to fall in a hole and head to Dungeon 4 afterwards. So another part that plays into splitting D7 into 2 parts is that we now have a lot more arrows to spare for the equal fight. Because we got to pick up that the 20 arrows in D8 first. And we're going to make use of as many of those arrows as we can. Eagle has 22 hit points, which takes 11 arrows to get down. And hopefully we'll see a good fight. Eagle's also one of the most RNG heavy fights in the game. He has 5 different attacks that he can do, one of which you can't hit him at all. So you could get a lot of cycles depending on how bad your luck is. We're hoping for a good one. Okay, so the first cycle is always going to be a mid-height fly like this, where you can get 3 or 4 arrows in. And then after this, it's random. So there he was going to do a feather attack, which he did again, where you can't actually hit him at all. But you can cancel that cycle quickly by going down the ladder. So EDL cleaned up the fight pretty nicely and managed to do a lot of hits with just her sword, which means she has a lot of extra arrows. And that means she'll be able to go for triple shots in Death Eye, which I'll talk about later on the final boss. So Meeks just got her D8 Nightmare Key and is going to be heading to Hothead. So I'll wait to see how her Hothead fight goes. EDL falling down here, we'll swim over to D4. She picked up that heart container, which is an intentional thing to refill her health. It tends to be a little bit faster than getting the heart container from Eagle. If you need a full refill. Meeks looks like she's gotten a little bullied by Hothead. Yep. Hothead can definitely do this. He likes to spawn where you can't hit him, or just generally be a jerk. Okay, so remember way back at the start of the run, I mentioned that we do an RNG manipulation. With our save file we used to run on. So how that works is that when you make a save file, like as you're making the save file, it randomly determines the solution to that puzzle and the path through the Windfish's egg at the end. And that gets baked into your new save file. No matter how many times you start a new game from that new save file, it'll always have that, like, those solutions stored in it. So every time anyone's running in this game, they're using a manip file where they know the solution to that tile puzzle in that other room and the egg path. So that's why she didn't need to see the solution first, she just knew what tiles to jump on. And we got to see another one of the little tricks in Glitchless just before this boss called Swag Jump. We get to skip a key by jumping over that gap. It's the Angler Fight. Angler was massively buffed in this version from the Game Boy versions. He takes a lot of hits. I think he has 25 health in total. Or slashes 1 and then spins 2. But that was a really good fight. So something that we kind of abuse for this fight is that if you are facing Angler and kind of like either you're moving towards him or he's moving towards you and you release a spin, it will hit him twice, which will actually do 4 damage compared to 1 damage of just slashing your sword. So that gets used a lot to get him down quickly. Now, EDL has all instruments. Meeks is on her Eagle Fight. I didn't get to catch the beginning of it to have an idea of how well it's going. It looked like she didn't have a ton of arrows available, so the last few cycles ended up being kind of slow. But, got him down well enough. I think EDL is on a mid 140 pace here. Judging by the time. Which is a pretty good run. This nice orchestra playing here. So EDL about to enter the egg. Meeks about to make her way through D4. Looks like she's on a different RNG than EDL is. So, in the Windfish's egg here, there's a path of 8 movements that you have to take, kind of like a Lost Woods maze kind of thing. Casually, you're supposed to complete the full trading sequence to get the magnifying lens, to then read a book that tells you the path. But thanks to the RNG manipulation, we don't need to do that. We just know what it is. Since we have manipulated it to something that we're familiar with. Looks like Meeks got first try swag jump. That's really good. Okay, so EDL is going to begin the nightmare fight here. This boss fight has 6 phases. Some of which are harder than others, some of which are more random than others. First we have the blob. Hit it with powder 3 times, that's it. Second phase we have Aghanim. Aghanim first fires a reflectable ball, and then we'll have 50-50 shots each cycle of shooting a reflectable ball or a blue ball, which is simply a waste of time. With the caveat that he will never shoot more than 3 in a row of the same. So EDL here knows that that shot was going to be a blue ball. And she hits the minimum of 1 blue ball, which is good RNG. It's about a 25% chance of getting that. So it's not too bad, but sometimes Aghanim does like to kill runs. The Moldorm phase, just stun lock him. And then the Ganon phase. The Ganon phase can only be hit by spins or dashes, so we do 2 double spins and dash. Cleans him up quickly. Mola phase takes 4 spins. Nothing fancy. And finally is Death Eye. For Death Eye, we have to shoot 10 arrows at the eye as he opens it up. And normally you only have time for 2 in a cycle, but with very specific movement, you can have time for 3. And if you get 3 twice, you skip a full cycle, but it's pretty difficult to actually get that in a run. And EDL is already locked into a 5 cycle at this point, so she stops trying. Yeah, Ganon dies really fast. Ganon dies faster than he does in the CDI games. And EDL finishes with a 140-30. It's a very solid run. So GG's to EDL. That means she will be moving on in the lower bracket, and unfortunately, Meeks will be eliminated from the tournament with this. But doesn't mean that she will stop improving at the video game. Looks like Meeks just opted to forfeit, and she's also here in chat for an interview. GG to Meeks.
Hello.
Hello.
I decided to end that run suffering.
Yeah. But how did you feel overall about how the run went?
Disheartening, I think, is the word that keeps coming to mind.
Yeah.
It's definitely not the way I was expecting it to go.
We're also joined by EDL. GG's.
GG, EDL.
You as well. I don't know what happened. If you're forfeiting, I'm guessing that it didn't go so great.
Yeah, it was a pretty rotten run. I probably would have finished with like around a 146, probably.
Yeah.
So it was
Unfortunate.
yeah.
I had this insane nerves. My hands were shaking the whole time.
Oh yeah. I think all the way through D3, I think my heart was like beating out of my chest.
So, thoughts on your run, EDL?
Well, I think it's a good run considering like you know, the mistakes that were sprinkled throughout. Like I'm not. I basically that's what I've been living in. It's the world of oh, I'm making these mistakes here and there. Therefore, I can't PB.
Yeah, I know
Because
the
otherwise,
feeling.
I usually would always at pretty much every run. If it wasn't from my own ineptitude, it doesn't even have anything to do with the RNG at this point. If
Yeah.
I just need to not mess up anything, and I would PB. That's
Mhm.
kind of the same thing. This was what second try Yoshi, something like second try bomb jump. I don't.
Yeah, saw a second try.
And just other stuff like forgetting to menu to feather and hook shotting the wall or hook shotting the wrong direction, stuff like that.
Mhm.
Like without those errors, I'm pretty sure if it was a PB, it would have been very very close, very close.
Yeah.
So my it's the thing that I live in now. I just want the PB.
Yeah,
But
I
I'm
know the
happy. I'm
feeling
happy
for
with the run.
sure.
I'm happy with the run. Like for no reset, obviously. Like all the runs, I say I just want the PB, but at the same time, it's more
Mhm.
fatigue from all these amazing runs. Always, and then I'm not getting the things that I'm working so hard on. Other than that,
Yeah.
other than that,
Yeah,
it's
it's
good.
definitely disheartening.
It's
Yeah,
all great runs. So
but you'll
and
get there eventually, EDL. You'll get that PB again.
yeah, hope so.
uh, yeah, for me, it's just I don't know. I don't know. Headspace was a bit of an issue for me on this time, which normally isn't too big for me, but I don't know. I think a
Was it
combination
related
of
to
the
today
hmm.
or no?
What was the question? Sorry.
Is it related to today or no?
I don't know. I honestly
No.
don't know. It's
Okay.
just I think it's just one of those off days, and like I've been practicing all week. And I think just sometimes you get an off day, and sometimes Landmula knocks you into a pit, and sometimes Fly Meal trolls you for like a minute, and and you just
Oh
you kind of
yeah.
just move on.
Yeah, I know what that is. I've had that a few times. Just a few times. Not that I can't count those times anymore. But
Well, happy I finally got the ratio though, EDO. That's the
oh yeah,
important
no,
thing.
I definitely want to rewatch this. I've been wanting to race you. Sad that your run didn't go so well. Like I would have wanted to see maybe a closer race. If you say that it would have been at 146, I know that that's not the usual ballpark that you go in.
Yeah.
Yeah,
There'll always be room for more races.
for sure.
Oh, I
Let's get a rematch after the tournament at some point. Then
Yes, for sure.
haven't been able to load Challenge for some reason because Challenge is a bad website. But I think EDL, you're playing against TGH next. I think.
I
How are
think
you
so.
feeling
Yeah.
about that?
I mean that's the is it it's gonna be the third time I think that I do this. I think I'm not I'm not quite sure if it's the second or third time that I'm gonna race
Hmm.
against TGH. Well, he said recently last time I talked to him that he needed to practice. So
Yes.
did he practice? That's the question. If he did, then then I will rise up and try my best. If he didn't, then I don't know, because sometimes he's just that good.
Yeah.
happens. But yeah, no, I think for glitches specifically, I think I have a really good shot, especially with my average being this good, and I've been so consistent. I think I got a serious shot more than the other times that I raced them. But
Yeah.
again, we'll see when we do the race.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've seen you have pretty good consistency lately, so. And Meeks, unfortunately, you are now out of the tournament, but do you have any
Yep.
thoughts about how it's gone overall for you?
Yeah, no, I've been super excited during the whole tournament. It's pushed me a lot more than I thought it would, and I was making comments in one of the Discord servers the other day that the like I think it's like the top 5 slots on the leaderboard over like the past couple of months, like on average, have gotten 1 minute faster. It's like the whole community has kind of come together and grinded out and have just really pushed the game to new low times, and that's always super exciting, and I'm really happy I've been a part of that. So
Yeah, it's been great seeing your improvement over the past few months.
yep, and I want to keep running. I want that. Well, I want that 138, but I've heard some rumblings of a 137. So I mean, I want to keep going until I can hit the limit.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So yeah, with that, I also once again say GG's to both runners, and thank you a lot to Glan for providing the commentary. It was
Thanks
very
for the
good to
retrain.
listen to and watch this race. Lots of fun. We are going to be raiding over to CSR main, where they started a Breath of the Wild tournament match about, I don't even, like 10 minutes ago maybe less. So yeah, stick around for that if you're interested, and keep an eye on the schedule for more content from ZeldaSpeedRuns, including the mentioned upcoming matches of this tournament, once they get scheduled. And yeah, with that, thank you for watching.